Hello, my name is Doug Dortch, minister at Captiva Chapel by the Sea. Thank you for joining me today as we consider a brief message on how important it is to hold on to Jesus. A message that I hope will give you some encouragement for your day. Well, it's that time of the year when Judy and I have been going through things, thinking about what we need to hold on to and what we can let go of. You probably go through the same exercise because if you don't, after a while, things can get kind of junky. I don't know about you, but for us, it's hard to let go of stuff. It's because everything has a memory attached to it. But after a while of poring over and sometimes praying over a decision on what things matter most, the things that we do hold on to become to us and for us even more precious. In the 7th chapter of the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is having a series of conflicts with the Pharisees, who were the religious leaders in Jesus' day. And in the first part of the 7th chapter, there is a particular conflict that has to do with how his disciples, the disciples of Jesus, were eating food with hands that were unclean. Now, the Pharisees were of the opinion that Jesus and his disciples were uncouth at best and immoral at worst because they didn't pay attention to what the Pharisees called the tradition of the elders. What does that mean? Well, the Pharisees were referring to additional commandments that they and those who had gone before them had imposed on the common people, commandments that held little value in terms of what God really required of his people. And in this context, the Pharisees were talking about the steps that people were expected to take prior to each course of a meal. In Leviticus, the 15th chapter, there is a commandment that an unclean person is not to touch anything or anyone before washing his hands. And the Pharisees took this command, which was intended simply to make sure that the unclean condition not be spread to others, and they added other commandments to it so that by the time of Jesus, everybody was expected to wash their hands before each course of the meal, not for the purposes of either holiness or hygiene, but simply out of habit. And as everybody knows, if not watched closely, habits can degenerate into mere superstitions or even worse, compulsive behaviors. So as far as Jesus was concerned, the Pharisees had milked all of the meaning out of the practice. Jesus said to them, you make a big deal of externals, all this washing of hands and pots and kettles and utensils, but you miss altogether, Jesus said, the matter of the heart. You have discarded, gotten rid of the most important things, and you are instead holding on to all that is worthless. You have let go of the commands of God, and you are holding on to the traditions of men. Sometimes I wonder if we're not guilty of doing the same thing today. How many Christians do you know that operate on the basis of a strict sense of do's and don'ts? And while I would be the first to admit that the Bible does call us to be discriminating in our choices, to make sure that our choices are Christ-honoring, the fact is that there are still too many of us Christians who seem to be motivated more by law than by grace. There are too many of us Christians who have managed to discard all the fun from our faith, so that what we hold on to is something that just can't seem to sustain us. So I ask you this day, what are you holding on to? Is it sustaining you? Is it something that allows you to get out of bed each morning ready to seize the day? Does it give you a sense of meaning and purpose? Does it carry you through the difficult times in your life? Does it move you to joy? Because you see, the truth of this text is that there is only one thing in this life that you really need to hold on to, and that is your faith in Jesus. Because when you hold on to your faith in Jesus, because your commitment to Jesus will move you to show His Lordship in every part of your life, every part of it will take on more meaning. The reason the disciples weren't worrying about eating with unwashed hands was because they were finding their joy in Jesus. And the thrill of His fellowship gave them a sense of the presence of God that left them feeling whole and complete. And so what I'm advocating for this morning is that we just focus our energies and our attention on following after Jesus, so that our work and our play and certainly our worship all become vehicles for advancing the cause of Christ and God's kingdom purposes in this world. So would you be willing to do that today? Because if you do hold fast to your faith in Jesus, then everything else in your life, everything, will seem full and complete. But if you don't, then no matter what or how much you have, you're simply holding on to things that will never bring you joy. The choice is yours. So thank you so much for listening today. Now you do your best to hold fast to your faith in Jesus. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week.